begin by singing together. You can yadadai with me, or you can sing the words Kol Sason Bekol Simcha, the sound of joy, the sound of happiness. Kol Ahuv Vekol Re'ah, the sound of the beloved, the loved one, the sound of a friend. Kol Sason Bekol Simcha, Kol Ahuv Vekol Re'ah, Kol Sason Bekol Simcha, Kol Ahuv Vekol Re'ah, Kol Sason Bekol Simcha, Kol Ahuv Vekol Re'ah, Kol Sason Bekol Simcha, Kol Ahuv Vekol Re'ah.
We are all different.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Temple Sinai. This is our Erev Shabbat service, including our Rainbow Shabbat service. And here we are. The sun is setting. It's getting darker all around us. The world is quieting down a little bit as we enter into Shabbat. And a time of rest, a time of peace, and a time of blessing is all descending upon the earth everywhere. So Shabbat Shalom to everyone. It's a time to put aside, any anxiety you might have been experiencing. I don't know. There's nothing to be anxious in the world about, right? There's nothing going on in the world these days. It's really important to take one day a week and to try to separate ourselves from all of the things that we have to worry about, and just to find blessing, to cultivate blessing for ourselves, for our lives, for the people that we love, for our world, and to bring in goodness and rest. So Shabbat Shalom. Tonight is also the beginning of Parashat Noach. We all week long we've been reading the Torah portion of Noah, and so it's just by coincidence, actually. We weren't even paying attention to this when we scheduled, but it's perfect for us to have Rainbow Shabbat, which is one of our twice a year annual events to lift up the experiences of LGBTQ Jews in our community, and to learn and celebrate. And that's what we're going to do tonight. And it's perfect that on the Torah portion that includes Noah and the rainbow, that in fact it happens to be Rainbow Shabbat. So welcome to everybody, and we welcome everyone who is with us. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to begin tonight by lighting our Shabbat candles. And tomorrow morning, amazingly, I want to say one other thing. Rabbi Talia Stein, our assistant rabbi, has the night off tonight, not entirely, because she's actually doing two other things. One is she's leading kindergarten, first, second, and third grade families in Shabbat candle lighting ceremonies at home, just for grade level candle lighting for Shabbat within each grade. So that's a really lovely thing that we're starting to do on Zoom. Everybody at home, number one. And then later on this evening, she's also leading our young adult Chavara Shabbat dinner, safe distance in someone's backyard. So that's where she is this evening. We're going to begin by lighting our Shabbat candles. And tomorrow morning, Solomon Hefes will be called to the Torah as a bar mitzvah on Zoom. And to celebrate that and to warm him up for tomorrow, we have given him the honor with his family of lighting the Shabbat candles with his parents, Alex and Rebecca, and with his brother, Isaac. So we're going to call them forward, so to speak, to light our Shabbat candles. If you have Shabbat candles at home and they're not that far from you and you haven't yet set them up, go and set them up now so that you can also have the light of Shabbat burning in your home this evening and the warmth and the blessing of Shabbat. So, Solomon, why don't you light your candles and say the blessing, and everyone can join along as we're muted at home.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
I almost burned my finger.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Amen. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom to everyone. May the light of Shabbat and its joy fill up your heart and fill up your home on this particular Shabbat evening. We're going to continue with a song for Kabbalat Shabbat, to receive Shabbat. Dodi li va'ani lo haro'eh b'shoshanim. My beloved is mine and I am his, or I am hers. Shabbat is very much a time of love, of cosmic love between the heavens and the earth, between God and all of the Jewish people and all humanity, and also between individuals. And one of the things that we celebrate on Rainbow Shabbat is one's ability to love whomever you wish. So we're going to begin with a love song for Shabbat and for Rainbow Shabbat. Please join along this beautiful, beautiful melody.
Dodi li va'ani lo haoeh b'shoshanim. Dodi li mizot olah min hamidbar.
years, for hundreds of years, Jews have been welcoming Shabbat with the Lecha Dodi since the 16th century. And come out of our homes, come out of our synagogues, open the door and say, Boi Kala, come, Shabbat bride, come, Shabbat king, come, O blessing of Shabbat. Bless us with peace and joy and rest. And I'm just, my eye was caught by the third verse of this tonight. Hit ori is sort of a wake up, rise up. The brokenness of the world, the city that it was in shatters, in shambles. We say, rise up, reassemble, and very much as we experience the brokenness of the world, this is a time for rising up, of putting the pieces back together. So we enter Shabbat with the Lecha Dodi with a sense of hope that things can be better, that life can be good, that the brokenness of the world can be healed. So please join me. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Lecha Dodi. La 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 la. La 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 la. Likrat Kala. La 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 la. La 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 la. Penei Shabbat. La 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 la. La la la. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad yishmehanu el hamilchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad l'shem La 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 Lecha Dodi. La 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 Likrat Kala. Likrat Shabbat. La 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 Lecha Dodi. La 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 Likrat Kala. Third verse. Hitoreri. La 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 Lecha Dodi. La 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 Likrat Kala. La last verse in which we ask the presence of Shabbat to come into our hearts, to come into our homes, to bless us with rest and blessing and peace. Boi v'shalom ateret bala gam b'simcha uv'tzola toch emunei am segula boi chala la 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 lecha dodi la 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 Now I invite you, wherever you are, seated, standing, in your home, in your living room, wherever you may be, picture yourself out in the field, just outside Jerusalem perhaps, or the city of Tzfat in northern Israel, and the sun is setting. And now I invite you to breathe in a deep breath, to breathe in the rest and blessing of Shabbat. A deep breath. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to us all and to our entire community. Now I'm going to give you the opportunity to greet other people. In breakout rooms, we're going to invite you to hit join a breakout room with 3 or 4 other people, to introduce yourself if you don't know them, to wish each other Shabbat Shalom, and to find what you're asking for blessing for each other. Take a few moments to greet the other people who you're randomly sent to. You have to hit join here in order to join. And we'll call you back in 1 or 2 minutes. All right, Yasher Koach. Okay. I'm gonna I'm going to close the rooms now.
Sounds good.
That gives people 60 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Beautiful. Wonderful. Shabbat Shalom. Joan, how are you? Good. Hi, Judith Baker. Pam Cooper, Shabbat Shalom to you. Pam, I like that art behind you. That's kind of cool. Yeah. All right, people should return in just a few moments. All right. All right, Shabbat Shalom. I hope you got a chance to greet other people, maybe meet a few people whom you don't know, and wish each other Shabbat Shalom. Before we continue, a teaching that comes from Jewish tradition, Rabbi Chaim Yaakov Zuckerman, the author of the Otzar Chaim, He looks at this week's Torah portion. He says, Noah, after Noah came out of the ark, there was this rainbow. Why the rainbow, he says. Listen to this. This is such a contemporary comment from Rabbi Chaim Yaakov Zuckerman. He says, why the rainbow? Because the rainbow symbolizes peace and unity, he says. It's because it's made up of so many different colors and shades of colors. And although they are very different from one another, they come together to make one entire whole. He says, similarly, people are very different from one another in many different ways. But this is his prayer. This rabbi says, Hasidic rabbi, he says, if they look at each other as one unit, as all connected, even with all their diversity, there can be peace and harmony. And for this reason, he writes, the rainbow is the symbol of the covenant between the Almighty God and the earth, symbolizing all of the diversity, and all of the unity is all one and connected. Beautiful, beautiful teaching from our tradition about the rainbow. Perfect for tonight. We're going to continue with the Baruch Hu, the call to prayer, calling each other, even though we may be far apart from each other, we're all connected as a community. And I invite you, if you wish, to rise in your place as we stand for the Baruch Hu, calling each other into prayer.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Yaira, 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 yaira.
You may be seated, and together we'll sing and concentrate on the oneness of all being. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Ruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. We'll continue chanting together.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. All right, we affirm Shabbat as something that connects us to God. It's a sign of a covenant, just like the rainbow is a sign of a covenant, bringing goodness and blessing into our lives.
V'shamru b'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורות המרית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורות המרית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורות המרית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורות המרית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורות המרית עולם. Rabbi Vogel, you're muted.
Thank you for reminding me. Aha, yes, now I hope you can hear me. I was just trying to relive last night's presidential debate, that's all. Sorry, bad joke. All right. Lahefech, just the opposite. We want to put that stuff behind us. Now we turn to the Amidah, our prayer of opening our hearts to God, reminding ourselves of our ancient connection, the heritage that Jewish tradition gives us of finding spiritual path for our lives, heritage based in chesed, loving kindness. We say, Zocher chasdei avot ve'imahot. Remind us, O God, of the acts of loving kindness that our ancestors lifted up and celebrated, that they've taught to us in every generation. Remind us and inspire us to perform acts of chesed. So I'm going to share the screen in just a moment for the text of the Amidah. Again, this is the standing prayer, so I want to invite you to stand in your place if you wish for this prayer, and we'll begin together. If you want to, you can face east if you wish, and again, that sort of helps you. I think the idea is that you turn your living room into a sacred space. Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Velohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Velohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor veHanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Chasdei Avot veImahot, Umevii Geula Livnei Vneihem, Leman Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer Umoshia Omagen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Vezrat Sarah. Now I invite you just to close your eyes, whether you're standing or seated, and just focus on what prayer is in your heart. What's your Shabbat prayer right now, tonight? And take a few moments for your own silent prayer, and we'll meet up with music.
Create a pure heart in me. Still can't hear you, Rabbi Vogel. It's okay. We just want to hear what you're saying.
Sorry, I keep forgetting. Yes, there it is. Okay, we turn to our prayer for healing now for people who are dealing with illness. We ask God to bless them with rifuat nefesh, urifuat guf, healing of body and healing of spirit. We're very aware of how many people, especially during this pandemic, are in need of healing, full recovery from whatever illness they may be dealing with, whatever challenges they may be dealing with. Rifuata nefesh, rifuata guf, also healing of the spirit. We need our spirits to be lifted up. We need, for those who are dealing with difficult challenges, we need to find a sense of hopefulness, and we pray for repair. On this Shabbat in our community, we ask God's blessing for these individuals. And then I invite you in just a moment, you can use the chat to add the names of others for whom you're asking God's blessing. We ask God's blessing now for Karen Matheny, Robin Barinholtz, Amy Perlman, A.B. Haupt, June Zeiner, Jim Zeiner, Jody Kleinman, Gilbert Kleinman, Ronnie Meckler, Allison Santucci, Meredith Fine, Deborah Kaplan, Nicole Morris, Selma Grubert, Luann Luce, Ben Slavitt, Alan Brackup, Tyrone Cushing, Evelyn Opat, Cantor Sue Knight Deutsch, Samantha Kramer, Pinchas Ben Miriam, Hechazan Sarah Bat Chaya, Michael Ben Bluma Ushmuel, Don David Ben Ezer Chaya, Davida Emanuela Bat Yechezkel Ephraim, Shoshana Bat Moshe Ubella, Ephraim Ben Malka Urachel, and as well all of those whose names you have typed in to the chat. May God bless them all with Rifuat HaNefesh, Rifuat HaGuf. We pray, please God, hear our prayers. And we use the words that Moses used in the book of Numbers when his sister Miriam became sick. Ana Elna Rafana La. Please God, bring them all healing. Ana Elna Rafana La. Ana Elna Refana 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 La. And together we say, Amen. Amen. Okay, we're ready now to move to a special part of our program tonight. It's my very, very great delight to call forward, in a sense, the chair of our Rainbow Committee, Marvin Kabakov. For many, many years now, we have had this special, since the founding of our Rainbow Committee, we've had a special weekend to consider the different experiences and lift up the questions around LGBTQ Jews. And so we have our Rainbow Committee. I want to thank all of the people who are part of the Rainbow Committee. Our chair is Marvin Kavakov, and he will introduce our speaker. Marvin.
Okay, thank you. Our speaker tonight is Caden Mohammed, who is originally from New York City and moved to the Boston area in 2010 to attend Wellesley, where his experiences and exploration helped him understand and become comfortable with his own gender identity as part of the trans community, and inspired him to get involved in social justice and activism. Caden began his career working full-time at Keshet, the national organization that works for the full equality of all LGBTQ Jews and their families in Jewish life. And he currently serves as chair of the steering committee of the Massachusetts Transgender Political Coalition. Caden's been interviewed about trans issues and rights by the New York Times, WBUR, and many others, and was featured in Spirit Magazine's 2017 Young Trailblazers list for activists under 30. Caden currently serves as Positively Partners Client and Community Impact Manager. Through a lens of intersectionality and equity, he helps to foster and strengthen authentic partnerships and relationships with clients and provides project management, content delivery, training, and facilitation support. I'm really happy that Caden is joining us tonight. So thank you very much, Caden, for being here.
Thank you so much, Marvin. It's really great to be back in touch with you. I know I came and spoke before, so it's amazing to be here again. And thank you also to Rabbi Vogel for the invitation to come and join you tonight. And thank you to all of you for welcoming me into your space. It really is very meaningful to me to be part of the community tonight. So as Marvin said, my name's Caden Mohammed. I use he, him, his pronouns. And I'm excited to share just a little bit about some of my own experiences and sort of speak a little bit about my experience from the perspective of being a transgender person of color. To start us off, I thought that it might be helpful just to give everybody some shared language, just so that, when I'm referring to something or using a term, that I'm not sort of confusing anybody. So I'm going to just, if it's possible, is it possible for me to do a screen share? If not, it's okay. And I can work around it.
Sure. I will make you a co-host, and then you should be able to share your screen.
Thank you.
There you go.
Wonderful. So, very quickly, just like I said, wanted to provide a couple of definitions for folks. So when we're talking about gender identity, what we're really talking about is how a person feels, like their deep sense of who they are inside. So it's not related to what a person looks like on the outside. It's not related to, when they're born and the doctor says you're a boy or a girl. Gender identity is really about a person's inner sense of who they are, regardless of any of those other things. And then when we're talking about gender expression, what we're really talking about is sort of, the outside of how somebody looks. So what clothes do they wear? What hairstyle do they have? Do they maybe wear makeup? Do they wear nail polish? What types of expressions or gestures are they using? And those are the things that we tend to think about when we're thinking about gender expression. So just wanted to give folks that language to understand. And then this sort of, this line that you see here is really just to show that when we're thinking about gender, we think about it on a spectrum, right? So you have sort of this end that is masculine, this end that is feminine, and then you have all of this stuff in between where it says gender fluctuates. And really what that means is, there are these two ends of a system, right? A binary almost of one over here and one over here. But then there's all of these people that fall in the middle of those two ends who are still valid people, right? We still count them as human beings. We still value them and their identities, but they don't identify on the end of that spectrum, right? They identify somewhere in between. So I hope that that's helpful for folks just to think about a little bit. And then just a couple of more terms. The term transgender, what that really means is it's an umbrella term for people who do not identify or fully identify with their sex assigned at birth. So using myself as an example, when I was born, doctors looked at me and said that I was female, said that I was a girl. That's what it said on my birth certificate. But growing up, that's not really how I felt. It didn't really match how I felt inside. And so I identify as transgender. Somebody that is non-binary is another term that folks may have heard at some point. And that's an umbrella term for folks that, again, don't identify on that binary, right? So remember that line we were just looking at, non-binary people are people that would be where that gender fluctuates part was, right? So they're somewhere in the middle there. And then cisgender is sort of an easy way to think about it is it's the opposite of transgender, right? So somebody that is cisgender does identify with the sex they were assigned at birth. Doctor said you were a boy when you were born, you grow up and you feel like a boy. That's your inner sense of who you are. That means that you are cisgender. So I'll stop my share there because I don't want everyone to have to look at slides the whole time I'm talking, but I just, like I said, wanted to provide just a little bit of hopefully helpful language for folks so that we can all be on the same page a little bit. And I think I may have just closed my whole presentation, but that's okay. I will get it open again. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time really just telling you a little bit about my own personal story. I'm happy to answer questions if folks have them as we're going through it. I'll also try to leave a little bit of time at the end to answer some questions as well, if anybody has them. So just give me 1 second to get this presentation pulled back up. Accidentally closed out of it. Okay. My apologies, everyone. So as I said again, my name's Kaden Mohammed. I'm 28 years old. As Marvin said in my introduction, I was born and raised in New York City, but I've actually been a Massachusetts resident my entire adult life. So in a lot of ways, Massachusetts has become my home. You know, I have my hobbies. I like to bike. I have a girlfriend that I spend time with. I love my work. I like to cook. I like to spend time with family and friends. And really, I'm just another person trying to make it through life like everybody else in this virtual Zoom room, right? And then I also happen to be a transgender person. That's part of my story too. And before I go a little bit further, I just want to sort of preface this by saying everything that I'm saying is really about my own personal story and my own personal journey. And there are commonalities and similarities among other members of the trans community. But I just want to make sure that I'm speaking for myself and not sort of speaking on behalf of all trans people, because I can't do that as one trans person to speak for everybody. So just know that, you know, I'm talking about my own experiences and there is some connection and overlap, and I'll sort of talk about some more broad concepts, but really going to be talking about my own experiences today. So to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm going to take you back about 25 years or so. And one of the first things that I'm often asked is when I first knew that I was trans. And it's always a really interesting question for me to try to answer. Because if you're asking me when I realized on a conscious level and sort of really understood what that meant, it wasn't until I was in college. But if you're asking when I knew for the first time on a sort of subconscious level or wasn't really fully aware of what was happening, it really dates back much further to the first 5 years of my life. I have very distinct memories from under the age of 5 that make me realize that gender identity and sort of the gendered expectations of our society are things I was questioning from a really early age. So even before I was in elementary school, I was already questioning my gender on some level, even though I didn't fully realize or understand what was going on or what I was feeling at the time. And growing up, I never really had language to understand what I was feeling, right? I mean, I talked about how I grew up in New York City. I grew up in Queens specifically, which is a very diverse place to live. I grew up in the early 2000s when the internet was around, right? We had access to those things. And yet, even in those situations, even in that context, with the privilege of, you know, living in a diverse city, the privilege of having access to the internet, the privilege of having access to education, I still didn't have any exposure to understand my own identity, right? I wasn't being exposed to people who I could look at and see myself in. I couldn't see myself reflected in my community or in my school or in my family. And it was hard. It was very, very difficult for me. I knew that I felt uncomfortable when people called me a girl or called me she, but I had no idea how to process that or what it meant. And so I just kind of shoved all of those feelings down because I didn't know what to do with them. And I wanted to fit in. Fitting in middle school and high school is hard enough in general without trying to add the additional challenge of figuring out how to explain my gender identity, right? And I didn't even know how to explain to myself what I was feeling. And I think it was really harder than I realized at the time. When I think back on it, I realized how much of a toll that really took on me. And I can see a lot of instances of discomfort and sadness and anger that stemmed from my own internal struggle at the time and that stemmed from the confusion that I was feeling. And I want to pause there to say that in the midst of all of this happening, I said I was going to talk a lot about the experience of being a person of color as well. While all of this is happening, I'm growing up in New York City in the height of the 9/11 attacks with the last name Muhammad. And so the intersection of my struggle with gender and my struggle with understanding how my skin color and how people were perceiving my skin color and ethnicity was really going to start impacting me throughout life. And it became a lot more prominent in my experiences from a really early age to recognize that who I was as a person was going to impact how I was going to be treated by other people and by our society. So if we fast forward now about 15 years, right? Now I'm in college. And that's really when I first started to hear the language that I could use to understand my identity. And I started to meet other transgender people for the first time. And for the first time, I felt like I could start to make sense of what I'd been feeling for so many years and make sense of really what I had tried to bury inside of myself. I hid it away so well that it took me an entire year to admit to myself how I was feeling. Even though I'd been struggling for so many years, I had, you know, felt so confused, embarrassed, ashamed, not represented that it was easier to just shove it really far down. Once I was actually able to work through all of that and really find some acceptance within myself, things really started to fall into place for me. I was able to explore what my gender identity really is. I was able to explore what my sexuality is, how I want to present myself to the world, and how I want to be received by other people, what I want my pronouns to be, what I want my name to be, and ultimately who I really am as a person and as a man. And there are a lot of things that I'm really grateful for that I had access to throughout my transition, like supportive friends and professors. I transitioned while I was in college, so that was really important for me. I'm privileged to have access to health insurance and access to hormone replacement therapy that has helped my physical transition. And I fully recognize my own privileges in all of those areas. Not everybody that is transgender is fortunate enough to have access to those things. At the same time, my transition has really taught me a lot about how complicated identity can be and how people's perceptions of who you are, like I said earlier, really impact the way that you're treated. And transitioning physically and having people read me as a man and treat me as a man has been really eye-opening for a lot of reasons. It's been really positive in a lot of ways. It's had some negatives as well. I'm read as a man. I'm also read as a brown-skinned man and a man of color, and that has a lot that comes with it. You may recall that I briefly mentioned, growing up during 9/11 and experiencing, what the effects of that were. But the danger sort of didn't end there, because after transitioning, I suddenly was having the experience of, for example, white folks that would cross the street as I walked towards them, even in broad daylight when there were other people around, as if just because of who I am and how I look, I'm some sort of a dangerous person that they need to stay away from. I came to very quickly learn to act in a very specific way around police officers. I learned that I need to be mindful of my behavior in a different way when I'm interacting with law enforcement for the same reason, right? Because it is likely and very possible that I will be treated differently solely because of the color of my skin. I began to understand that the freedom and the happiness that I have from living my true life and living my life the way that I want to, in a way that makes me feel happy and fulfilled, comes with a new set of obstacles and almost oppressions that I have to face as well. You know, I think we're living in a really important moment in time for a lot of different reasons. One of those reasons is because we're seeing the long history of racial violence and ethnic violence in this country really come to a head. And it's happening on the backdrop of a lot of other things, right? It's happening on the backdrop of COVID. It's happening on the backdrop of this election. It's also happening on the backdrop of a time in our history where trans identity and experiences are becoming much more part of the conversation. And so I'm really grateful, as I said earlier, to be here tonight to have this conversation, because in my opinion, trans people, especially trans people of color, are some of the most vulnerable in our society today. I'm going to share some statistics with folks that are hard to hear. Even I share these quite often in the training work and the education work that I do, and they still are hard for me to hear because they are quite staggering. One of them is that trans people experience 2 times the rate of unemployment due to discrimination. 58% of trans adults that live in the state of Massachusetts have at some point been verbally harassed in public spaces. Public spaces meaning a hospital, a doctor's office, a coffee shop, a movie theater, public transportation. Another one here is that 40% of transgender adults report having attempted suicide, and that is compared to 4.6% of the general population. And you know, when we add an additional layer there to identity and we start to think about trans women or trans people of color, we see that things become even more dire, particularly for trans women of color, and particularly when we're thinking about violence that is experienced. For example, trans women have a life expectancy in the United States of approximately 30 to 35 years. 87% of people that were murdered from 2013 to 2015, all people that were murdered, 72% of them were trans homicides. So there's a lot that's happening there, right? And I share some of these statistics with you, not just for the shock factor, right? I mean, I think that is part of it, is that they are shocking, but I think it also really helps to paint a picture that while we have come a long way in the last 10 years, for me to be able to sit here with all of you and be able to share this story with you, that to me is progress, because I don't know that 20 years ago, we would be sitting here together like this. At the same time, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in order to get to a place where we fully accept, fully integrate, and fully celebrate trans people, especially trans people of color. In my opinion, there should not be more than a 30-year difference in the life expectancy, or close to 10 times the rate of attempted suicide due to discrimination, hate, and violence solely for being who we are, or who anybody is. I would not want to see that enacted on any group of people. And you know, I spoke in the beginning of my intro about the fact that I'm just another person like anybody in this virtual Zoom room who's just trying to do my best to make it through life with happiness and success along the way. And I expressed that being able to live my life true to who I am comes with an indescribable amount of happiness and self-acceptance. I also expressed that joy I felt in finally feeling like myself was met with a set of realizations about a new set of struggles that I would now have to face. So what I'll leave you with tonight before I leave some space for questions is really just a hope that one day we're living in a world where trans people can in fact just live their lives like everyone else, when they can be who they are without fearing violence, without worrying that they'll die before they reach the age of 35, without having to hide or tirelessly fight just to be treated equally. And I think conversations like this one that acknowledge the discrimination and the violence that trans people, especially trans people of color, are facing are a key part of moving in that direction. So I just want to say thank you again to all of you and to Marvin and Rabbi Vogel for taking some time to listen and learn with me tonight, because I really believe truly that that's the first step towards the world that I hope future trans folks get to live in.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Really important message. I think we've got time for one or two quick questions. So I think you could pose a question in one of two ways. One is to raise your hand and wave. The other is to put a quick question in the chat. So Dina Blau, if you'll unmute yourself, we'll take your question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I understand your relationship, Kathleen, to the trans world, to the
What?
world.
The trans world. Oh.
Pardon me?
Go ahead,
However,
Dina.
I wondered if you could tell us a little bit. Do you have any relationship to Judaism?
So I'm not personally Jewish. My girlfriend is Jewish. I spent 5 years working at Keshet, so I would say that that is my main connection to the Jewish community and Jewish culture. So no, I am not Jewish myself.
Okay, other questions? Good. Okay, who is that? Yes, who's with Mary? Go ahead.
It's Tori.
Tori, yes, please, Tori.
Were you questioning your sexuality before your gender?
Yes, I think it's a little hard to answer because like, I think if I was a little bit more honest with myself growing up, that maybe I wouldn't have, but I did identify as, I guess, like a lesbian or bisexual. I mean, I don't really know, but I did question my sexuality while I was growing up because I tried to fit into the box of being a girl. And because I was trying to fit into the box of being a girl, it felt like my sexuality didn't match what you typically assume for that. And so I did question my sexuality a little bit. I think now I have a clearer understanding of why I was experiencing that. So I do identify as straight. Like I said, I have a girlfriend. But yeah, I mean, I struggled with both growing up for sure.
Good, great question. Okay, we'll take one more question, if there is one. Oh, Jonathan, go ahead, please. And you just have to unmute yourself.
Hi, Caden.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Jonathan, and I think it was partially answered by the last person, but I was wondering if you felt male inside growing up, why you selected Wellesley, but I think you just kind of answered that.
Yeah, it's a question that people often ask me, and I think it's a really valid question. At the time that I applied to Wellesley, I didn't identify as a man because it had been so just buried, right? Like it wasn't even something that I was aware of until I got to Wellesley. And I had a really hard time my sophomore year. To be totally honest, I was engaging in some pretty self-destructive behavior because I was so unhappy and so confused about how I was feeling. And I finally had the opportunity in my sophomore year to actually meet other transgender people. And when I heard them explain how they were feeling is when things started to click for me. And I finally had like the language and the understanding to put words to how I was feeling. And having completed my sophomore year by that time, it was a little bit of it would have been really hard to transfer. And I probably would have ended up having to repeat a year of school. And so for me, it made more sense to graduate from Wellesley, even though I had come into that identity and come to understand that about myself.
Wow. Thank you so much. Really wonderful presentation and wonderful questions. And Caden, we're so grateful that you joined us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate being here tonight and appreciate everybody listening and the questions. So thank you all again from the bottom of my heart.
And we'll hope we have another opportunity to continue the conversation with you and to to learn from you and to keep the conversation going. Good. Thank you so much. Thank you to Marvin and to the entire Rainbow Committee for all of your work. And we've got lots of other things that the Rainbow Committee is engaged in. Of course, we're very concerned in the world about what will happen with the Supreme Court, with the possible and likely confirmation of a new Supreme Court justice who may nullify the rights for same-sex marriage in our country. We're very, very concerned. So we just want to encourage people also to keep in mind LGBTQ issues when they go to vote, whenever that will be in the next week and a half, to keep that in mind as well. So thank you so much to Caden and to the Rainbow Committee for tonight's presentation. We're going to continue now with our concluding prayers. And so we'll begin with the Aleinu, recalling our obligations. It's Aleinu, it's upon us to engage in work to repair our broken world, to unify God's name and the oneness of God's presence all throughout the earth. And so I invite you to please rise, if you wish, as we pray together.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב עיקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגבהי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. על כן נקבל לך אדוני אלוהינו לראות מרע בתפארת עוזך, לתקן עולם המלכות שדי. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You're
Thank
muted
you.
again.
There we go. I keep forgetting tonight. Caden, we're going to continue with our Mourner's Kaddish. And Caden, you spoke so powerfully about the life expectancy of people who are transgender people. And that's heartbreaking and very, very serious. We recall that all human life is all sacred. And we praise God, the source of all life, for giving us life and reminding us to hold dear those who are close to us, and to treasure their lives and to lift up their lives. On this week's Kaddish list, the yard sites, we recite Kaddish for these individuals whose yard site falls this week in the calendar: Belle Boardman, Samuel Cousins, Agnes Kurland, Hannah Sekel Drucker, Edith Yallis Gilman, Leah Henrietta Goldman, Robert Guggenheim, Esther Kabakov, Solin Lopatin, Sylvia Marks, Margaret Vivian Nally, Jean Periski, Sam Pomerantz, Jeanette Wolk Richmond, Shimon Rockney, Carolyn Rose, Yetta Nichols Rosen, Ben Rower, Malka Rudovsky, Isidore Slotnick, Ida Storto, Stanley Trachtenberg, and Robin Trimble. And in the period of Shloshim, the past 30 days, we remember these individuals and we express our condolences to their family members or their dear ones. We remember Sandra Neumer, longtime temple member, and we extend our condolences to her family. We remember Shirley Robinson, extended family member of Judith Jaffe. And Judith, we offer you our condolences tonight. And we also recall Noah Fieldman, longtime temple member, who was laid to rest today. father of Bruce Fieldman and Janice Fieldman, and we extend our condolences to them and to all of their family members. And we invite everyone, encourage everyone to join us tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock on Zoom for Shiva with them. And I encourage you to use the chat right now if you would like to name others for whom you're reciting Kaddish on this Shabbat. And if you are not yet standing, or if you sat down, I invite you to stand one more time as together as a community we recite the words of the Mourner's Kaddish, again proclaiming our gratitude to the mysterious source of life, who has given us life and who protects life and who affirms love and goodness in the world. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah be'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute b'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'gala uvizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lamei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei dekudesha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran ba'alma v'imru Amen. Yehi shlama Rabba min shamaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Osei shalom b'imromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru Amen. You may be seated. Okay, Shabbat Shalom to everybody. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us tonight for Rainbow Shabbat. Mazel Tov to the Hefes family on Solomon's Bar Mitzvah tomorrow. Let me share with you a few brief announcements. Jeremy Wolf has just shared in the chat the Oneg Zoom link. We invite everyone to join us for an Oneg Shabbat, a chance to schmooze with one another and to keep the conversation going as soon as the service is over. And there's a separate Zoom link for it, so you can click on it in your chat. Tomorrow morning, we have Shabbat morning Torah study, an opportunity to study the week's Torah portion starting at 9 o'clock. I'm leading that. I invite you to join me. Then at 10:30, we have Shabbat morning services, which will include the Bar Mitzvah ceremony for Solomon Hefes, son of Alex Hefes and Rebecca Weinstock. And Solomon, in just a moment, we will call you to lead us in the Kiddush. So Mazel Tov to all of you. And the entire congregation is encouraged to join us on Zoom. And the link is on our website if you go to streaming services. Tomorrow night, you can also join us for Havdalah in the Park at 5:30 p.m., led by Rabbi Stein. That's at Amory Park. The weather should be quite nice, and we encourage you to come out at 5:30 for just an opportunity to be together. We ask everyone to wear a mask. Actually, I think that there's been a sign-up sheet for that, and I think we hit the maximum. So if you haven't signed up, we'll encourage you to come to the next outdoor gathering, which will be on Sunday, November 1st. Mark your calendar, 12:45, Sunday, November 1st, for an in-person Temple Sinai picnic lunch. And we encourage everyone to join. And you look for, that will be in Jamaica Plain, and look for announcement about that. Between now and I think tomorrow, you can stream the film for our brand new Israel Film Club. We are going to present a number of films that you can watch at home, download and watch it at home, and then join for a discussion later on. And I think that you can still download the film 15 Years, which is about a gay Israeli architect and looks to be like a really interesting film. You can, I think, watch it until tomorrow. And then Amos Lassen, who's been coordinating this series, will be facilitating a conversation with the director, Yuval Haddadi, on October 27th. So you can see the email update for more information about that. Amos is also teaching a class called Zionism Reconsidered: The Early Years, and that begins on Sunday at 9:30 in the morning, October 25th. So please join for that. And also the Zoom link is in the weekly email. And then, in addition, Amos, you've been busy. We got another thing Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock. You can continue the conversation with the Israeli Reform Rabbi Golan Ben Chorin, who lives in Haifa, who's joining us by Zoom. It's 10 p.m. his time, 3 p.m. our time. And the conversation is about Temple Sinai and Reform Judaism in Israel. So you can join us for that. Yes, there's more specific information about that. Next Friday night, a couple more announcements. Hang on. Thank you for your patience. Next Friday night, please join us at 6 o'clock on Zoom for a very special celebration, the installation service for our new assistant rabbi, Rabbi Talia Stein, at 6 o'clock next Friday, October 30th. And we will have special guest speakers. Rabbi Oren Hayon from Houston, Texas will be joining us, and also Rabbi Sharon Cohen Anisfeld, I think her title is the president of Hebrew College here in Newton, will be joining us to install Rabbi Stein as our student rabbi. And Tammy Kalman also reminds me that the last, I don't think it's the last one, but it's the next one, I think, Racial Justice Book Club group, talking about racial justice, is on November 9th. And if you are interested in joining our next book group discussion, please send an email to tzedek@sinaibrookline.org. All right, lots of other things going on. I didn't even mention our scholar in residence, who is going to be joining us November 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th. But now I've mentioned it, and you can find information about that also on our website, and look for that in a few weeks to come. I'm suddenly in a snowstorm. All right, good. All right, now we're going to share the screen and turn to the Kiddush blessing for Shabbat. It's my pleasure to call forward now. Let's see if we can find him. Alejandro Hefes. Let's see, where did you go? Solomon.
Under Hefes family.
There you are, under Hefes family. All right, with an H. Okay, I'm going to, there we go. Spotlight. Solomon, surrounded by his parents. And Solomon, Mazel Tov to you. Tomorrow morning, Solomon will be called to the Torah as a bar mitzvah. Solomon, I'm going to invite you to raise your Kiddush cup. And everyone, if you have your own Kiddush cup or a glass of wine at home, I invite you to raise that with us. And even while you're muted, join Solomon in the blessing for wine and grape juice. And Solomon, I'll start it with you. Here we go. Ready? Baruch
Adonai.
Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pari hagadol.
Gafen. Amen. Keep going. Baruch
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher tishanim b'mitzvoto v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, v'ahava uvratzon, hinhilanu, zikaron, lemase bereshit, kihu yom tehila, lemikra'ei kodesh, zecher litziat Mitzrayim, kivanu v'harta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodesheha be'ahava uvratzon hinhaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
Amen. Yasher koach l'chaim, and Mazel Tov to you, Solomon, and to your whole family. Congratulations. And we'll see you tomorrow morning at 10:30. So please join us. Mazel Tov once again. We're going to conclude with the Motzi over Challah, and then we wish everyone a beautiful Shabbat evening, beautiful rainbow Shabbat evening for Rainbow Shabbat, and also for Parashat Noach, the story of Noah. So please join me. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom.